Welcome to episode 112 of the 48-hour art check. Yeah. And Cory is joining us remote, which is why we don't have our standard split screen. So Cory, how you doing?
Doing great. Yeah, doing good. Just on the road.
Sweet. Still making it to the chat? And
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Making the check. I haven't hit. It's like after 10. I haven't hit sticker stint yet today, but we'll get that done too.
Yep. I'm kind of in a similar boat, so why don't we dip into it?
Yeah.
Okay, so what have you gotten done in the last 48 hours?
Uh, two sticker stints and a rage video about some misinterpretation of some things I said about automation. So I kind of made a video to kind of clarify that. And I inked all of the mermaids on that page. And actually, I have all the characters done, so I just have the boat left.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sweet. That's awesome. And we'd show images, but I thought you sent me images, but I'm not seeing them.
I didn't. Yeah, I don't have them on my phone, so.
No worries. So we'll show that and recap that like the next art check. Cool. That's a lot done considering you also had to do a trip. I mean, that's
Yeah,
a lot of progress.
4 hour drive after work. So
So if you guys backtrack and you check out our sleep episode, we didn't follow our own advice. I don't think either of us. Never. So yeah, I hope I'm not cutting you off. Or are you? Is it good for me to jump in?
yeah.
Okay, cool. So I got this panel inked, and I'm going to be inking this one tonight because I similarly had a very late day. And then I also inked part of the first panel, but it's going to take a long time. So
That's cool.
So that's pretty much where I'm at. A little bit of the first panel of Quarterly Stories done. A little bit of the third page started. So yeah,
cool.
So
you got to show your work traditionally more often, because I think people forget. Because I forget, like, just how big those pages are. I know we just talked about this, but they're huge.
Yeah, I like to work big. It's funny. It's something I picked up on my graduate project and stuff. We do have some people in the chats. So Squatchy Inc. Is joining us at per usual. Nice to have you back, man. And then Ronnie Gunter said, "What's up?" So, wow. Hello. And then Jeremy in the chat said, "Hey guys, I hope you're having a good night." And I think we are. I think it's a fairly decent night. But we'll get into some of the stuff that might have been good, might have not, but have been challenges to us. So what's been the challenges you've experienced in the last 48 hours?
Mainly just time. I actually did get a good night's sleep last night, because yesterday I worked from 6:30 in the morning till 6:45 at night, and so this morning I was just like, I'm just gonna sleep in. I didn't have any appointments or meetings or anything, and so I just told everybody, hey, I'll be in late. So I slept in, got a full night's rest, so I feel great. And then just like time, like I had to pack and then drive 4 hours and then unpack and then put the baby down and then put Scarlett down, and then so I haven't. I mean, hasn't been time today to do anything. I did get a podcast episode up, so we'll get, if you're following the podcast, we're gonna start updating again at least twice a week, and we'll get back in the boat on that. But yeah, just time. I met with a potential client who wants to put me on retainer for some stuff, which may cause me to have to build a loose quasi agency of freelancers to be able to do some of this stuff. So I'm weighing. I think I'm going to do it, but I'm kind of weighing how to do that and whatever. And so there's some stuff with that. With, do I W-2 people? Do I 1099 people? Do I incorporate? Do I do an LLC? Sole proprietorship? with insurance and all that. So there's some of that just kind of like in the back of my mind while I'm working on stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool though. That's exciting, and like building a team is kind of a fun thing, especially when it's remote. So it's not you're pretty much the boss in that scenario, which is great. Uh, Cory is having some technical difficulties, so I'll just continue. So my challenges were really wacky. Like my biggest challenge was basically dealing with the school district of my son's school. So there was kind of a violent incident in his class that all the 5-year-old kids witnessed, and he was not involved in that incident, but he did witness it. And I found out about this and took off work halfway through. I explained the situation to my boss, and what seemed like a little bit of negligence on the school's part. And my boss actually was like, even on my way out, was like, give him hell. So, and he gave me a couple tips on how to kind of effectively advocate and stuff. So I went in, advocated to the school, had to go to the district office of safety, had to go to the district office. At the district office, I was told like nobody could speak to me. So I like basically was like, well, maybe I should speak to the local paper then. And then like suddenly somebody's speaking with me. And then like midway, like once I'd worked my way all the way to the top of the chain, I like the guy I was talking to who was claiming that the president wasn't there, went and I overheard him talking to who I assume is the president. And then I heard the phone pick up, and then suddenly I get a phone call from the principal of the school, and they're taking care of it immediately. And I'm like, okay.
Right.
But yeah, that took like a ton of energy and a lot of the day. And then today was just like a crazy day at work, just kind of playing catch up and being really overloaded. And we have some really fun, cool projects, but like me and 2 members of my staff were like there till about 7:30 to 8. So I literally got home like maybe 10 minutes ago. So yeah, so that's been my big challenge, is just like similar thing. It's not bad stuff. You got to advocate for your kids. You got to, it's just all stuff you got to do. You got to do good at your job, but it's just time was a struggle. So, yeah. All right. So what's the plan? What's your plans for the next 48 hours?
Yeah. So I'm on the road all weekend. So I packed up I've got my mobile inking kit with me. So I've got, pencil case full of different inking tools and a board and my little sandwiched paper that I do with the binder clips. So I'll be mostly working on that page, hopefully finishing it, if not making some significant progress, depending. Nice. It's always hard on the road. And then I need to get 3 more stickers done before we meet again. So I've got today's, Saturdays and Sundays. So
nice. That's hardcore. I think my plans will be to have, thinking about it, I do have Saturday and Sunday. So I'm thinking like 3 panels, more inks on the 3rd page. And I'd like to be at least done with the 2nd panel on the Quarterly Stories comic. So that 3rd page I was mentioning is for the 100 Days of Making Comics anthology, number 2. And so those are like the 2 goals that I have like over the week, and then getting taxes done on Saturday.
Man, yeah. I was almost. This should have gone in challenges. We spent several days trying to figure out taxes. My Maddox, my son, who I have adopted, but not everything is done. Like the adoption is finalized, but like we've been fighting insurance companies forever. Now we're trying to get a birth certificate in that shows us as parents so that we can get a social security number so that we can file our taxes, because we can't actually file our taxes until we have those 2 things.
Oh, no.
Those 2 things is contingent on, the one before it. And so it's going to be one of those things where I'm hoping we don't have to defer.
Yeah.
Just the speed of government. So there's all this paperwork we're filling out, and anyway, so that's fun.
Yeah, that sounds like a very similar thing to like me having to go to the district and work my way up just to like
Yeah.
get a school to do something.
That's what it was like with the insurance company was, talking to the people on the phone, and then just over the course of 5 months, I just continued to go up the ladder until I got to, I think the highest that I can go as a normal person.
Yeah.
And that person helped me out, which is great.
And then it's funny because then suddenly everybody below them is like super helpful. So Squatchy in the chats made a joke about, I think he said, Josh uses that Squatch-sized paper. So yeah. And then he was recommending you hire, like when you're building your team, to go hire them as subcontractors. And I would estimate that might be the easiest for tax reasons later on, as well as liability. But you'd have to do more research because I've only done teams like once in a blue moon.
Yeah. Well, something that might be interesting is maybe I don't know if we can get Scott on, but maybe we can get somebody on who's done that for Monday's show, and we can just talk about kind of the business side of freelance teams.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it because I mean, most of ours was like, what you call like ghosting. So it's like, you'd pretty much just have somebody ghost and take the work, and then taking care of them that way. But if it's like a more long-term kind of setup, that's pretty hard to sustain. Let's see. So I think that. Oh, and then Squatchy was saying that he finished page 10. I'd assume of his comic today. Which, congrats, man! That's huge.
That's cool.
All right, so should we dip into like a very brief topic, considering you're on the road?
Yeah.
Okay. So
we didn't talk about any possibilities. Do you have any ideas? So
I kind of do. Because, and I think we might have touched on this before, and I don't think it has to get too deep. And it's going to risk the idea of being kind of tropey when I bring it up. But it's been on my mind because today I've felt a lot of encouragement, even though I had to work really hard to get to a pretty significant shift at my workplace, and like a shift in the school system yesterday, and just so I was actually just going to talk about the value of persistence. And like, I don't want to get super heavy in it. And I think most of what we're going to talk about probably will end up seeming like, just tropes or kind of cliches. But I do think it's a really interesting topic, and it's definitely been on my mind today. So I guess I should just kind of, for the podcast, say the topic is persistence, and how persistence can be a huge leveler when it comes to art and talent and ability, and also just making things happen with your own career, professionally as an artist. And so I was saying before we kind of got into the podcast was the idea that this, anytime you breach a topic like this, it runs the risk of being kind of cliche or tropey. But there are some cliches that are cliches for a reason. So so do you want to kind of chime in on that? Like, how do you kind of view the role of like persistence in your own time as an artist? Like, I just instantly think of the you have an unusual story of when you got into like really seriously illustrating, and and I think that to me, that comes to mind when I think about persistence, because I think you're a good example of that in action. But how has that kind of been a benefit, or, maybe a lack of benefit? Maybe there's times where that hasn't paid off.
I'll really quick. I think the thing that comes to mind is there are things that you should persist in and things that you shouldn't persist in. And telling the difference is kind of difficult, but I think everyone needs an experience where they fight tooth and nail for an extended period of time before they see any results, and then they get results. Because and I actually set this up in one of my courses. I have a project where it's the second project in the semester, and the course is basically like, let's learn Adobe Illustrator, and then, you know, also learn like creative thinking and concepting and composition, you know, strength and kind of, but it's built around kind of the software. So the first project, I have them do icons, which is pretty basic, and it's to kind of give everybody like a foundation, like here's how to work with shapes and anchor points and paths and the pen tool and the shape builder and all that. And then after that, I say, go find 3 or 4 pictures of a watch, and then you need to create from scratch a photorealistic illustration of that watch. And these students will spend upwards of 35 hours. You know, usually it's about 20 to 35 hours, you know, depending on their skill level. And almost all of them get there to where it looks photorealistic. There's out of 50 students a semester, there's maybe 2 or 3 that just don't put in the time. But it's one of those things where if you put in the time, you get it. And the reason I do that is because in my own life, I've seen that I've gone from I like to draw, but I don't do it well, and I don't do it often because I don't do it well, to I'm going to start a webcomic and I'm going to deliver a colored page every week. And so I did that for 60 weeks straight. I got 60 pages done. And by the end of that, I know now that, like, in my gut, you know, more than just in my brain, but deeper down, I know that the only thing stopping me from closing that gap, you know, I can look at another professional and say, man, they are so much better at me than X. I know that the only thing that's stopping me from being there is time and effort. And so, like animation, I really wanted to learn how to do animation, and I knew zero about After Effects. And so I said, I'm going to do 100 days of animation. And so I spent a minimum of 30 minutes every day for 100 days straight. And I have 93 videos in that playlist. And some of those videos, I am pissed. And some of those videos, I am beat and tired. And I have a whole week in a row of videos of just me saying, well, I effed it up again. I screwed it up one more time. If I have to rig this character another time because I've done it wrong, I am just going to throw this thing out the window. But then at the end of that, I'm pretty decent for somebody that has had no training and has no professional experience in animation. I can kind of do within a specific style of animation. I can make it do anything I want.
Yeah.
And so I've learned, and it's kind of like one of those things where you can be told something and you can believe something, but until you internalize it through experience, you don't know that thing.
Yeah.
And I know that the only difference between what I lack and what I want is time and effort.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a really great version and description of exactly the topic. Like for me, I was thinking about, like, one of the things that has really helped me in the position I'm in is, it's weird, but it's like actually been a lot of things that have been personal weaknesses that turn up being kind of strengths. Um, there's a couple things about my character that, like, you know, have gotten me into trouble in the past. Like, one is I really dislike bullies. Like, I'm not a big fan of bullies, and I have gotten myself in really big trouble as a kid because I wouldn't back down from bullies. And I've never been a big guy. Like, I've never been like a built guy, but I just couldn't stand the idea of, like, somebody just picking on someone with no recourse. And so, like, as a manager, that's been a huge strength because I'm very persistent in that. Like, I will not back down to a bully. Like, and whether that's someone on my own team, and like, once again, in that school scenario, you know, dealing with that school system where it's like I'm being told something, but I know, like, deep down in my heart, there's a bunch of like 5-year-olds in a classroom that are potentially threatened. And to me, that's like not helping those kids is kind of a like bullyish behavior. So it's like that just drives me to be really persistent. But the biggest thing is just straight up persistence. Like I'm not a person who easily quits things, and I've never been a fast artist. And so like when I go, like if I rewind to like art school, you know, there were people in my class who were exceptionally talented, and I've had a couple of them on art casters. There's a couple of them that I probably couldn't even touch, right, like get in touch with now because they're so like giant in the industry. Like one's one of the key story artists for Disney and worked on like Zootopia and all these other films. And that guy would knock out his homework like 30 minutes before class, and it looked better than everyone's, including mine. So I was like kind of up against people like that. People like my wife was actually in a lot of my classes in college, and she was one of those people who would hang up stuff and was just better than everyone. She was much quicker. And I've always been really slow, methodical, and obnoxiously persistent. And that's always been a real asset to me, because when other people would kind of like not pull all-nighters, like I would pull like 3 all-nighters to match what they could do in 1 all-nighter. And that's kind of been a benefit. And it was kind of similar with like getting clients, where I just would not accept the idea of not being paid to do art. Like I just felt like I need to just keep cracking at this until I'm actually paid to do it.
Yeah.
And that would drive me to do weird things like, you know, cold calling art directors and like emailing people I had no business emailing. And I think like that really, it can be a problem to be persistent like that. And it has been in my life. Sometimes I'll persist in something I shouldn't, but it's a real asset when it's kind of pointed in the right direction. And so for me, like, I think with comics, I think it's really an important topic, because it's something that, you know, comics or animation, if you dip into it and you don't have the ability to kind of persist through failure or persist through hardship, you're going to have a lot of trouble making comics, because it's just a lot of work. It's a lot more work than most people realize. And then like similarly,
or you won't have any trouble because you'll just give up.
Exactly. Exactly. But I do feel like even in the position of an art director, which you've been a creative director, so it's like, you know, how this goes, but like there's a ton of stress to the job.
Yeah.
And you're going to face like brick walls that seem impossible to kind of break through, and you'll just kind of chip away at them. It's almost like a kung fu movie where you're just punching wood for like 10 hours, you know, and like nothing's happening except your hands getting messed up. But before you know it, like there is this weird point where like you're on your like 20,000th punch, and then you hear this little crack, and it's like the most, I've had a few of those moments this week, and some of these punches have just, and not punches, but in that, keeping with that metaphor, some of this chipping away has been going on for like years.
Yeah.
In my position. And so there's some things that are starting to give, that where I'm like, I can't believe that actually worked. You know, because like, once again, there are times like in the process of persisting where you will constantly have moments of like, what is this? Like, nothing's moving. And then if you scale that up to like a business level, like if you're a contractor, that's one thing, because it's your own, you know, results. But if you scale that up where there's more people involved, and it's like, you know, you have different departments and different structures, it's like the movement's even slower at that point. So like seeing any progress is like a very slow thing. It's like, it's usually not like you go in, you see like change or anything.
Yeah.
So I've realized like once again, that's been a real asset to me in that position, because I think a lot of people given the same position would have bailed like very quickly. And so it's like this weird thing of, but like you were describing, I guess my point is, it's also something that can be built, because when you do it and then that thing unlocks, like you were just describing with your comic, where it's like, it's kind of this labor and this headache, or your animation where you had weeks where you're just like, I can't believe I suck. I did this thing wrong. Like, and then before you know it, you know how to animate. And it's like this weird window unlocks. And it once you have one of those moments, it makes all the other persisting kind of much more bearable, because you want that again. Like, there's something really beautiful about that point where like you hear the crack in the wood that you've been punching for, a year, or you like break through and you like gain a skill and you're like, holy crap, like I actually can do something that I didn't really have any idea what I was doing when I got into it, but now I know how to do it. So yeah, so that's kind of, I don't know, just a rough idea that's been on my mind. I think that's been fairly close to 10 minutes. So do you want to wrap it?
Yeah, let's wrap it. Yeah, so if you want to check out my stuff, go to corykerr.com. Check me out on Instagram and Twitter. And if you want to check out Josh's stuff, go to quarterlystories.com. And if you guys want to do us a huge favor, big favor, like right now, before you walk away from your computer or your phone, go find our podcast. Just search for 48-Hour Art Check and leave a quick review. So everybody who's listening to it right now, you guys have heard a lot of these episodes, and we've got an awesome community of people. I'd like to build that. I'd like to spread the word and get that out there. And so those reviews are super helpful. You guys are awesome. So we will see you on Monday. Have a good weekend.
Yes. Bye.